us. Welcome. My name is Kara Green, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am the facilitator of curriculum and development here at Steppenwolf. And I'm so thrilled today to be in conversation with Jeff Perry. Jeff, you want to introduce yourself and let us know your pronouns?
Sure. My name is Jeff Perry, and I'm a co-founder and ensemble member at Steppenwolf Theater. And I'm a he, him, his. Is that how you do it?
Great. Yep. Perfect. And we're so thrilled to have Jeff here today. We're going to be talking about how do we stay fueled and inspired during this time, this unprecedented time in our world. It really is a global pandemic, but also how, as artists, can we also feel like there's something essential to the work we do? How do we keep ourselves inspired and fueled, and how are we inspiring and fueling others? So one of the things that we always do at Steppenwolf Education before we begin is, even in this virtual space, we do a land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is taking the time to recognize where we are situated in the world. I'm just going to take a moment to read our land acknowledgement. We recognize that Steppenwolf Theater sits on native land. The area our building resides on is the traditional homelands of the people of the Council of Three Fires, including the Ojibwe, the Potawatomi, and the Odawa. For over 200 years, Native nations have been forcibly removed from this territory. We must acknowledge that this land continues to be a site of gathering and healing for more than a dozen other tribal nations and remains home to over 100,000 tribal members in the state of Illinois. We know that we have people joining us from all over the country and all over the world, and so we encourage you to also look into where are you, what kind of land are you sitting on, and who are we honoring, and who might you be honoring as you do the work that you do as well. You can go to native-land.ca to find out more. So with that, we are ready to dive into our conversation with Jeff Perry. So Jeff, hello, and I have to start with, how are you? How are your people? How are your family?
Good. We're all still safe and sound, thank goodness. And so we are, my wife Linda, Loie, who's a casting director, guys and gals and women and men and all artists that we're speaking to today, and teachers and interested people. So Linda Loie's my wife, and I have a daughter, Zoe Perry, and Zoe is from my first marriage to fellow Steppenwolf ensemble member Laurie Metcalf, and she is an actress. We lost her to the family business, you guys. She was at Northwestern outside of Chicago, and
Okay.
she was a film theory major and got in a school play and decided, oh, this is for me. And so she's been doing that for quite a while. She's in her mid-late 30s. My other daughter is Leah Perry, and she works at a small firm that does a lot of social media platforming stuff aimed at tween girls. I don't know what that is.
All right.
9, 10, 11, 12.
I'm the mother of a tween girl.
Okay.
There's a
Yeah.
possibility that she might run through the background today. She's
Yeah.
9
Cool.
and a half.
Cool. And we
All
have
the stuff.
we have two Labradors, you guys, and they keep us very, very busy. And one is about a little over a year old. It's a girl Labrador named Kitty, which is in honor of my mother's nickname. My mother's real name was Jane, but her nickname was Kitty. And Patrick is the older big brother of Kitty. Not really blood brother, but we call him brother. And he's like 12. And they are both really, really delightful. And they require a F of a lot of waste management.
So
When they're little, you guys,
during this time.
it's like babies without diapers.
Yeah.
And
It's
if you
like
don't
Doctors Without
want
Borders,
them,
but different.
yeah, if you don't want them peeing and pooping
Babies without diapers.
in your bed, or on you, there's a lot of taking them out and all like that.
Great.
But they're pretty joyful. Okay,
Before,
so I'm in Los Angeles, you guys.
great.
We said that. Yeah, and I'm in my
Not
office.
yet, but
Okay, go ahead.
perfect. So you're in Los Angeles, you're in your office, you've
Yeah,
got some buddies over your shoulder.
yeah,
Yeah.
over my shoulder. We got a Gary and a Terry, Gary Sinise, Terry Kinney, Jeff Perry. And what I got in Blast from the Past, let's see.
Oh my gosh, tell me about that picture. What is that? Yeah.
That is from Highland Park High School. And
Oh my goodness.
Gary and I are 15 years old and we're sophomores, and it's backstage of a school production of Moliere's Tartuffe.
Amazing.
And
That
Gary
is
and I
so
were,
amazing.
you guys were rescued from academic confusion and mediocrity by a really inspiring English drama teacher. And she was directing a production of West Side Story and pulled a lot of us kids in from the hall and said, "You're trying out, you're trying out, you're trying out." And Gary and I ended up respectively as Tony and Pepe. And we fell in love with everything about it, you guys. Everything about making theater, everything about pretending you were in other humans' circumstances, and everything about the communal, tribal aspect of it. A family who could make up, who could inhabit a made-up world, And we just we went crazy for it and kind of never looked back.
I love that idea of like a communal family. And during this time where I think of us probably on this call and the early career professionals who are on here feel that same way, like theater is part of a communal family for us. And now that we're separated from our communal family, right? Theater tends to be everyone gathering together in a space. How are you keeping yourself connected at family, and what's inspiring and fueling you right now during this quarantine time?
So probably like a lot of you who have the devices, I'm binging TV like crazy. Excuse me. And some movies and stuff like that. And early on in my path, somewhere in like the first year of our theater, you guys, and this is 1976, 1977, John, the actor, director, John Malkovich, and I started teaching. And it was basically so that we had money to go to the laundromat, and we were teaching scene steady. And I discovered that I really loved everything about that, kind of turning my chair around from the normal participant as actor chair and watching fellow actors and really doing not much more than trying to articulate opportunities that I might see in what they were doing, and trying to kind of understand their connection to this particular piece of writing, and then play around with the largest multiplicity of opportunities that I and we as a class, could discover. I've always loved rehearsal, and the, kind of continued exploration of what's the relationship between you and me? How do I make that? How do I explore it? How do I dig into it? How do I make it feel more authentic to me? What are my fellows revealing to me? How in the present can I stay? How much can I balance um, the homework, the sort of text analysis, the personal empathy and imagining from reading a story, reading a play, reading a teleplay, reading a screenplay, and how much can I explore that individually and somehow balance that with staying in the moment with my fellow actors, because they are bringing all of their amazing, imagining DNA to the situation.
That's great. We have a mutual friend, Katie Lowe's, and I reached out to her because she was a student of yours,
Yeah.
right, in 2002, as part of the Steppenwolf school, Steppenwolf, and works with you now. And she said one of the things that you worked with her on that has really her is the idea of opposites and playing scenes opposite a little bit to like what that looks like. What do opposites look like?
Yeah. I am, one can come to, however momentary, a feeling, an instinct. Even we might even frame it for ourselves as a conclusion of, it could be about an imagined history in a relationship that's in the script. We had a traumatic event, and what was a really close friendship became fractured, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And something about that imagined history can be made really primary in a scene. And then you can feel that and go, oh, that's interesting. That leads to this, that leads to that, reveals this. And you can go, we shared a traumatic experience that bonded us. When I think of opposites, it didn't fracture us, it bonded us. It gave us, a window into each other's soul that feels absolutely singular in my whole life. So it's that kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
sometimes it's really simple opposites. Like, what if this is really fast? What if this exchange? What if this event has a really fast tempo and a short duration? What if it has a really slow tempo and a long duration? What if it's fairly still? And what if it's full of movement? And so sometimes you can play around with opposites, and they're coming from um, your empathy, in a way, your study of the script. And at other times you can use physical tools. And any of you who have played with improvisatory games and viewpoints practices, you know that the adoption and the use of physical tools of kinesthetic response, tools of time and space, really, kinesthetic response and tempo and duration and architecture, meaning everything around you, including your fellow humans. That you can really play with those without a feeling of necessity of psychological motivation, and let physicality tell you something about the possibilities of the situation, of the relationship, etc. Now, Kara, you asked, so how do you keep the love alive, you guys?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, we're talking about this right now. We're in what, for everyone except, I suppose, like our great grandparents' generation and the Spanish flu of 1918, 1920, that none of us is absolutely unprecedented for us in this world, and something that is planet wide. And the best thing we can think of to combat it is to isolate and to distance. And some of us are absolutely almost alone, and some of us have family members and loved ones or roommates, whatever. And in normal times, you guys, an actor's life, at least in my experience, it has a hell of a lot of time where you cannot grab hold of, figure out, win a job, and be able to do what you love with other people that you love doing it with. Yeah. And so I've done a lot of different things. As I said, I discovered this love of class and process, where class meets what you feel in rehearsal and the exploration of that. And so I've put together classes alone and co-taught, and they've had a pretty wide range over the decades. Sometimes I'll concentrate on playwrights. Sometimes it will be in conjunction with someone teaching improv type exercises and games, and someone teaching viewpoints. I do that. I did that with a great Steppenwolf mentor, Sheldon Patinkin, who was one of the founders of the Steppenwolf School, which is 22 years old, you guys. So that has always been something that, if I'm out of work, I can't get anything. Just nothing is happening. With a little bit of effort and a few dollars and a little rental of a space, you know, I find I'm able to, oh, thank God, I'm with fellow actors, I'm with artists, and I get to feel a little bit of Chekhov today, or a little bit of the British playwright Carol Churchill, or a little bit of this or that, you know, whatever. And there's some art in my life in that week. During this pandemic, my Scandal TV buddy, Tony Goldwyn, I was part of a cast of ABC's Scandal, written by Shonda Rhimes, and we became good buddies. His daughter was in a program, I think, at Central School in London as part of her semester abroad as a theater student. Like everybody in the world, life turned, you know, upside down with the pandemic, you know, within a couple of days. And Tony got on the phone to me and said, Jeff, I've directed a lot, but I haven't taught. I know you love teaching. Should we try some teleconferencing, video conferencing, Zoom class specifically for a few humans who are interested, who suddenly got their plug pulled on their education that they were passionate about. So I've been doing that. About 4 months ago, you guys, before we knew of pandemic, 4 or 5 months ago, I started, I helped start or gather people that I've been impressed with, like 30, 35 people on the email list, and maybe 6 to 12 show up at any given time. And I started a salon that's basically teacherless and very, very democratic, and very much about, I'd like to work on this audition material that I'm about to work on. Could I share with you, or could I share with you guys some writing that I'm doing? I'm an actor. I've never written. I've always been terrified of it, and I'm writing for the first time. Or I'm an actor, but I've actually, I was a writer first, and or actually I've written. I've kind of done this all along the way, and this is like the 14th thing that I've written. But could I get your feedback about it? Um, that's been another way in which I've tried to keep the love alive. Um, another
I love
one,
that. You, yeah.
another one is through this, through the teaching world and through Steppenwolf ensemble members, Lois Smith and Molly Regan. I got introduced to a teacher, director, scholar, actor, British born Rob Clare. And Rob was teaching in two different chronologies in New York, two different moments. Both Molly Regan and Lois Smith took his Shakespeare scene study workshop, which was an ongoing once a week thing for a certain number of weeks. And I got to meet him and watch some of his class, because both of them had said, Jeff, I think you will love this man. We were both felt such Shakespeare virgins and
Mm-hmm.
terrified. And he demystified all of it. It became like all of acting for us. He's this amazing combination of a scholar who kind of has the whole Shakespearean canon in his head, but a very
Mm-hmm.
pragmatic. He was an actor first, and loves looking for all of the acting opportunities that can exist, and they're kind of endless, you know, or there
Mm-hmm.
couldn't be 20,000 Juliets through the years, you know, since the 1500s, or
Right.
Hamlets, or this or that, right?
Right.
um that all held our attention. So we're trying to put up a production of King Lear, and it's going to cost, it will necessitate us raising like $200,000 to $300,000, and we're going to try to build a full production of King Lear so that it can play free of charge in Los Angeles area men's prison, women's prison, juvenile detention center, VA hospital, homeless shelter, that kind of thing. And we have a partner of the Pasadena Playhouse, where we'll do a few, what you might call kind of normal theater, uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, regular invited audience, and da da da. Um, and we're trying to get that up in January or February of 2021. And so those classes, and oh, and one other thing I'm doing in that little class years ago, Steppenwolf ensemble member and a amazingly gifted visionary director, Tina Landau. She directed William Saroyan's Time of Your Life, and I got to be in it, and it led to a great fascination of this American-born writer whose heyday was the 30s and the 40s, and into the 50s. He kept writing till his until his death in the it was either the 70s or the 80s. And very prolific, essays and short stories and plays. And I got very fascinated with his writing. So one of the things I'm doing in the lab that I call a salon, where we each kind of keep scratching our own curiosity itches, and each
Mm-hmm.
other's, and is I'm in wonderment of whether I could put together a one-man show based on Soryan's writings. So I've been working on
Oh,
that
that's
a
so
lot
neat.
lately. Yeah.
I love that. So really taking this time to explore things that maybe you haven't explored and use this uncertainty as a way to maybe get more vulnerable with your work and dive in. Think about like, what might it be like to do a one-man show? What might it be like to write if I've never written? What might it be like to unlock Shakespeare, and who can I connect with? I think that those are all really exciting things. One of the things, and it speaks to the uncertainty of this time, right? And you talked about that, like we don't know, and sometimes as an actor you're out of work for periods of time and you're also in uncertainty, and that can be really anxiety producing. And I know that you spoke a little bit, there are two things, and you can decide, you can choose your own adventure here. You spoke a little bit on the half hour podcast.
Yeah.
One about sort of FOMO, the fear of missing out that you can get, and the idea of like envy and jealousy that can be created. And I think
Yeah.
there's an interesting thing happening now because so much of our portal into the outside world is social media. And so it's so easy to get wrapped up into like how that person is doing their quarantine, or how productive this person is being, or how is that working. So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you've dealt with that. And
Yeah.
then also the difference, you talk about how you're a list maker and kind of a control freak, and you like to have all of those lists.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the idea, and for people who are control freaks right now, this is a very uncertain time. And the difference between being a control freak versus what you talked about, having an explorer's heart, and what that looks like in a time when we can't explore.
Um, well, we'll start with I guess we'll start with comparison
Mm-hmm.
and its pitfalls. From high school on, I fell in love with everything about ensemble work, about connection, about a family you can create and a family you can choose. I have great love for my biological family, but we all know the joys, the pitfalls, the everything of the families you create, in your artistic pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I happened to meet at Highland Park High School Gary Sinise, and then at Illinois State University, all the other first two, almost three generations of Steppenwolf artists. And we started as 9 people, and here we are 44, I don't know how many years into the theater's life, and it's 50 some artists. It was such a absolutely fundamentally profound, sustaining thing, these connections. In our early 30s, and we were all within a couple of years of each other, the original group of 9 people, everyone felt uh, a need to find themselves as individuals again, and that expressed itself in different ways. You guys, marrying, getting a house, having a child, career, is kind of what I'm talking about now too, of trying a different city and trying places outside of Steppenwolf and mediums outside of theater, of television and film, etc. For the first time in my adult life, I experienced a level of comparison turning into envy and jealousy about any of my dearly beloved, you know, actor director mates, as we all tried solo things. And the comparison of this person's getting movies and this person's achieving this kind of fame and this kind of money and da 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 da. And it was a deeply contrasting feeling to everything that had fed me before. And it felt like a very dark, bitter hole. I hated it. I hated the feeling. I didn't feel like I was in control of it. And I got turned on to by a couple dear friends, a psychiatrist, who I ended up seeing for on and off for about 5 years. And this, like I said, it was in my into my mid 30s. And it started with, wait, where's my self-esteem, sense of individuality? What is going on that I can't control this horrible feeling? Because it's an absolute dead end. You know that saying, be yourself because everybody else is already taken?
Yeah.
It's a great reminder, you know, for humans and for artists, to try to avoid comparison. But anyway, this psychiatrist helped me. We started with that. I then found out that, oh my God, there's 13,000 reasons why I should be seeing a psychiatrist. Envy and jealousy
right?
are just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. But anyway, there was that. To the other thing you spoke of, Kara, we talked about that comparison. What was the other?
We're thinking about being like being a controlled
Oh yeah.
maker.
Oh yeah.
You liked it, and you just talked about like feeling out of control, having an explorer's heart.
Yes. I have a really deep-seated, wiring that's about needing love. And the strategy to get it is figure out what the other person wants and needs and try to provide that. Try to become that. So that I'll never be alone or without love.
Right.
And
sounds familiar.
Right. So being a good student, not failing, being right, trying to have all the answers.
Yes.
This is a big part of my wiring. It felt like all of childhood, a lot of adulthood. Yeah, again, somewhere in my 30s, earlier mid. I was in a play, you guys, at Steppenwolf. It's called As I Lay Dying, and Frank Galati was its adapter, and it was a Faulkner novella. And I remember saying to Kara's first acting teacher, Austin Pendleton, a fellow Steppenwolf member and a great teacher and a great mentor and a beautiful artist, and who I always looked up to, and I'd go to him with my problems often. And I said, Austin, something's happening. I don't know what is going on. I don't know if I'm going to remember my lines. I don't know if I'm going to remember my blocking. I barely know. Something is changing. Something's very, very wrong. I don't trust myself. I don't trust a process that I've worked at, for 15, 18 years now, since I was an adolescent. And Austin listened and he said, Jeff, what phrase do you keep using? I go, I don't know. What do you mean? He said, yeah. I don't know. Okay, so he said, well, now you're getting somewhere. My first inclination, you guys, was to say, fuck you. Sorry for the French. Why do we say sorry for French when we swear? I don't know. The poor French.
I
Anyway,
don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's not the French for that word.
But in I'm sure in that day and in a million days since, I've realized in different ways and to different depths that he was saying not knowing is the artist's place. It is the artist's comfort zone. It is a place that's really fertile. And when you think of it, you guys, the present tense, the saying, the truth. You can't step in the same river twice. Simultaneously, A, because the river is always moving, and B, because you are not the same person as you were even a millisecond ago. And I think in that simple, I don't know, oh, you're getting somewhere, was a lot of that territory. And something that had been at in tension and at war started to be less so in me. And I thought, me coming to conclusions or being right or giving someone, trying to guess in the first place at what someone else wants and me trying to give it to them. What if instead I explore what most interests me, what I find most compelling? What if I reach for what I find most authentic and then most speaks to me? Isn't that what good art does? The very personal attempt to express what it feels like to be me on this planet in this time. And being right and knowing everything, being in conclusion. Another thing that's really kind of simple, drama 101, comedy 101, our art 101, is it conclusions? Okay, great, you have a conclusion. Wait a second, that's an end. Wait a second, I think conclusions might be kind of dead. Whereas questions and explorations and trying to figure something out is alive. So a lot of that hit me. And when Kara talks about, the explorer's heart, I think, Austin was reminding me what is over 30 years ago now of you have that heart. It's at war a bit with a control freak and the need to be approved of.
That
And
need to be picked too, I think, so often.
yeah, yeah,
To be like chosen or picked and to feel like you're
yes,
progressing in your career, like you're going somewhere all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And to not be thought stupid, to not be thought ridiculous, to not be thought, whatever, not be picked on,
Hmm.
not be disapproved of, yada yada yada. Um, I think there's, everybody can relate to this and to some extent, and yeah. So that was one
I'm
of.
one.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Ken.
I'm no. I'm wondering, like, as we think about I think that that's beautiful and something we can all adapt to. We have a question in the Q&A, which is about like sort of the nitty gritty of doing things as an early career professional, like people putting themselves on tape for things or doing that. But it feels like, how are they progressing their career in times not just passing them by while they're in quarantine? And I think that speaks to, and if we think about like outside of taking a class, I think it speaks to this really interesting thing about theater professionals, actors and directors specifically, where unlike other artists, where like if you're a painter and you find yourself with time by yourself, you can sit and paint.
Yeah,
If you are a musician, you can sit and play the guitar or the violin or the piano and progress. If you're a dancer, you can stretch and choreograph. But what is that? How do we stretch ourselves and how do we feel like we're moving forward as actors at home? And if you have any specifics, great. And if you don't, that's fine too, and just sort of in general. And I wonder, Jeff, if you're frozen.
yeah. I mean, I'm telling you my I'm telling you my go-tos. Reading something that either just struck me or something that, wait a second, 15 years ago I was obsessed with something about this. Let me pull that thread again. And that's what the
Yeah.
William Saroyan writing thing is. And can you still hear me?
Yep, I got you now.
Okay.
Yep, I can hear you, and
Kara,
I
you
can
can
see
hear
you
me, right?
moving
Okay,
again.
sorry.
I can hear you.
Okay,
Yep,
okay.
we're good. No,
Yeah. Listen,
what's this?
you guys, I'm an amateur woodworker, and I mean lousy amateur. I can build bookshelves that fall over, and but it's really therapeutic, you know,
Yeah.
to build a little something. And at different moments of my life, I found myself volunteering. There was a moment, the, I've had two television series regulars in my life, jobs, and one of them was
Mhm.
a show called Nash Bridges, and I don't know what that is now, 20, I don't know how many years ago. And I was being I was being paid more than I'd ever been paid by a lot, you guys. And my family was healthy, I was healthy, yet I was feeling really, really blue. And I came across, I have no idea if it was bogus or legit, but like a tiny little book in the airport of Buddhist sayings, Zen sayings, Hindu, I don't know what. But one little page, the student comes to the teacher and says, Master, I'm discouraged and I don't know what to do about that. And Master says, oh, well, go encourage others. Anyway, that thought led me to doing some volunteering at a couple of hospitals and meeting some people who the volunteering just sort of took itself to a couple of relationships that became gigantic for me. And they're both men who were paralyzed, quadriplegic, and dependent on ventilators. And started out by talking, ended up by a friendship, and yes, doing errands, doing this, doing that, visiting, stuff. But that simple act of, wait, I've got things to be grateful for, and yet I'm really, really sinking into some sort of depression, and I don't know what to do about it. Reaching outside of myself was a big lesson, because it helped. It just helped a lot.
Great. I think that's wonderful. I'm going to shift a little bit, and you mentioned that you had two serialized shows. One was Nash Bridges, the other one was I will out myself here as a huge Scandal fan. I've seen all episodes. And you famously, the whole cast would live tweet every Thursday night the episodes.
Yeah.
And that is particularly, I think, interesting right now, because we're at this time where we may be watching, you said you're watching movies and you're binging TV, and how are we're not watching full, some of us, but we're tweeting or we're on Instagram. What was the process of tweet Scandal like? How did that create that community for you guys? And what lessons might we pull from that, early career professionals be able to do with those sorts of terms?
It was born in the combined brains of Kerry Washington and Shonda Rhimes. Shonda was the creator, head writer, showrunner of the show, you guys, and Kerry played Olivia Pope. And Kerry had worked both of President Obama's campaigns. And in our particular group was already more experienced and kind of a convert of social media as group communication. And because Scandal was so clearly deliciously, if you liked it, built on, like 4 to 6 great plot twists, per episode. Kerry thought, oh my gosh, this is a time period when binging is starting to be more popular. Actually waiting for a show on a weekly basis is getting less popular. Something the old network television model used to call appointment TV, I'm going to be there, was slowly disappearing for everything except like sporting events and, type of thing. And Kerry said, I think we might have a chance in conversation with whatever audience we can build, to kind of make a version of appointment TV, because we'll all live tweet the thing together. And it worked like crazy, and it built and built and built and built, and it built this community and this dialogue. It was really strange for me at first. I was kind of like, wait, this is my only chance to see the show. I can't see the show and type and look at 47 questions. But it is keeping me employed, so I'm gonna do it. Wait, Kerry, you asked, what could we do right now? I think I saw from a Boston music school. Have any of you guys listening it was vocalists, instrumentalists, and all sorts of people, and maybe the TV and film side of the student body too, kind of kicking in and creating this big ass collage. 20, 30 people, all working on the same song. I can't remember if it was Imagine, the John Lennon song. I don't know. It was
Yeah,
something.
I think I've seen a couple of different versions of
Different, yeah,
that. Yeah.
different versions of that. But I think, you guys, it was students suddenly pulled out of life and training and going and coming up with this idea of something they could do as a group. And I'm noticing friends doing writing labs, whether they've ever written together before. And it might be a group of people who've never even tried to write, or led by somebody who didn't used to write, and then they found out that they loved writing, and da 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 da.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's great.
yeah.
That's great. I'm wondering, and we're getting close to the end, but I'm wondering if there's anything else, lessons that you're drawing from right now over big events that have happened where it's like we may never be back to the theater again. We may, after 9/11, theaters were closed for a long time. I know that you did, were you doing the time of your life during the Iraq War? Just like times where arts feel, we're looking at the essential workers who are doing such amazing work, hospital workers, from hospital workers to delivery people, to the people in grocery stores. Those jobs feel essential. The arts may not feel as essential.
Yeah.
What lessons can we sort of draw from other times, well, not a global pandemic, where theater's been shuttered and then reemerged?
I guess, any sense of history and the longevity of the human race. It depends if you grab at glass half full, silver linings. But these certain stories right now, you guys, about, wait, in 2 to 3 weeks, the air quality of a giant portion of a nation's map can improve so dramatically. Oh wow! Oh my God! Somehow hold on to that. Hold on to that. Um, hold on to that fact that if we will let it, nature will heal things like the air, like forests, like water. Da 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 da. And so there is that. The Black Plague, of the Dark Ages, the Spanish flu, of the worldwide pandemic of the 1918, 1919, 1920. I read something where film was in its real infancy around 1918. But within about 2 years after shutting down, it came back, and it came back, and it came back. And theater has always done that. I remember, I don't know what it is now, you guys, 15 years more. The Sopranos and a few other shows were examples of cable TV is becoming so good. It feels almost better than anything theater's offering right now. And it's grabbing everybody's attention, and more people are staying inside and fewer people are coming out to be in the communal experience of theater. And I thought, God, I wonder if this is, kind of the beginning of theater being on life support. And then another part of my brain going, we we like to witness things together. And it might be a concert, and it might be dance, and it might be opera, and it might be theater, and it might be sports, and it might be this. But this is something we like. This is something apparently that we need. So I don't think this is gonna. I don't think this is gonna go away. Two little jump subjects a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Two things that stick with me that were connected to Shonda Rhimes. She talks about as a writer and a amazing practitioner of television writing that until she saw an African American woman and then another one and then another one in her youth and adolescence on television, she didn't know that such a thing existed or could exist. And she said, witnessing lives through art is one way of sometimes helping us figure out who we're becoming or who we could become. Where before there was not even that wasn't even in our imagination. Another thing from the Shonda Rhimes world, Grey's Anatomy as a holding the mirror up to nature of all sorts of things, but of medicine, is like 17 years old. From its first popularity within episodes,
Mm-hmm.
it spiked and continues to spike tens of thousands of men and women, especially women, choosing to go to medical school.
Interesting.
And I always found that really fascinating. You know, that CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the radio, anything that is starting to show us lives of nurses, of hospital janitors, of surgeons, of anesthesiologists, of respiratory therapists, of this and that. That that I swear will lead to someone saying, to many people saying, that's worthwhile. That is something I want to. That's something I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I think that's a beautiful thing to end on. That at this, and it comes full circle. We talked in the beginning about how exploring what your interests are, but also at the end, like, what's your story? What can you show us? We're seeing some love in the chat too about, like, yes, this idea of the arts allow us to see what we could be, to see representatives of ourselves,
Yeah.
and to take this that we're in quarantine out, like, is uniquely me, right? If I'm me, because no one else can be me, what might someone else not be seeing that I might share with them that's out there? What else might be true about my story that I can bring there? And we now have sort of to think about that and to start developing in a safe space how to bring that to life in the world in the way that Shonda's done, in the way that you've done with so many characters, in the way that Steppenwolf has sort of always done with bringing new playwrights and new voices to the stage. So that's wonderful. Thank you, Jeff.
Well,
This has been terrific.
I thank everybody who took a portion of their pandemic day to to
Yes.
to be with Kara and I. And
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
wish
being on
you,
our quarantine for the day.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Bless you guys for being interested enough to check it out. And stay safe and hold all loved ones tight, including yourself.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone who joined. We're going to send out a brief survey afterwards. And if you take time to fill that out, that would be fantastic. But for now, just our heartfelt thanks, Jeff, for being with us today, for everything you've
Pleasure.
created. Stay well, be safe.
Okay, you too.